fear, frustration in those places, and it happens like that. That's just a mega battery energy source that they draw off like the Lucius.
This is also why,
besides the fact that they use it for cheap labor,
they set up what you call zones.
Right. So they're drawing off of the energies.
Isn't that ethereal vampirism?
Yes.
Isn't Roe versus Wade was originally set forth, i.e. to support, i.e. the principles that are promoted by Margaret Sanger and the genocide program, and for what, a blood source and an organ source and what they will call a meat hamburger source in the name of women's rights. Now that's a fact. But look how many women support Roe versus Wade with the child sacrifice or murder of children guised as women's right of abortion for their bodies so they can keep partying.
Yeah, but
now, that's a fact.
Yeah, but I'm saying, you know,
which means we've been supporting it, haven't we?
Absolutely.
And then calling it something else, haven't we? Because we've been participating in the frauds, haven't we? Well,
yeah, but I mean, the point I was trying to make is that how many prisons there are all around, and that
POW camps,
but that they're actually literally being used as an energy source to these.
Yes,
I want to call them energy vampires or whatever they are.
No,
it's no different than when you get that. The reason why they're getting them back together in the arenas, like the football stadiums and the basketball, baseball, the loosh, but loosh on a regular basis comes from prisons because it's so much energy.
It empowers the vampires.
Yeah.
Now, all right. So those prisons, the same people who've been claiming to be judges have stock in those prisons.
Absolutely.
Which is why they get the youth, because they get them early. Now the deal is,
and they use them. They use the music industry.
Isn't it back to
draw them.
Jurisdictional issues? Isn't it back to lack of courts of diversity, which is established law? But that they're able to do these things.
But the fact of the matter is, they also use some of the big time rappers or rap producers of the 90s. They did starting in the 90s. To begin to change.
Aren't they willing wards of the state?
Right. They changed the tone and direction for the specific purpose of drawing young people, young men specifically, in through the pipeline.
Isn't that back to General Education Board where John D. Rockefeller and Frederick T. Gates, that they would mold these people into their service by teaching them improper concepts as proper? Why do you think they have a lot of people among our own who worked for the Board of Education will never contradict them because they made their livings helping the hybrid Europeans deduce our people's will to use their own common sense and intelligence?
I don't think many of them have even read that mission.
Look,
I'm talking about our people. I know. Well, I wouldn't think anyone who.
You know what we got to do? Stop excusing them. They
probably are not handing that to them.
I'll say this to you.
We're sending you into here because we don't want you to teach them anything for real.
I'll say this to you. As long as we keep excusing them, we continue the frauds. This is another reason we're in here. We're in this position.
I'm not negating research. I'm saying I'm pretty sure they're not putting in front of their face something that's telling them flat out. I mean, it's probably
not, because they get paid, as they call it, by them. They have in their history teaching, quote unquote, thousands of our children the curriculum that they were locked into, and they do it with pride, arrogant pride. They're criminal thieves. And they're part of the vampire system. If you study many of these people, they have the reason why many of them use those two platforms is because they have limited to no other skills or contributions to society. And so they justify taking these types of jobs to help destroy their own people in the name of helping their people, and then try to play innocent. But they can be very sticklers when it comes to small concepts about using different words. They're expert with that, but they never read those words of the philosophy. Why don't they read the philosophy page when they start sending their children out there? We ain't talking about the parents who ignorantly send their children to these institutions. We're talking about them teachers who get paid by the Board of Education that know the philosophy page and then hypocritically talk about they care about the children when they're knowingly part of the problem.
Well,
they justify themselves because they get a paycheck.
The latest agenda that's out with all of these mandates of teaching children about gender equality and sex, that same-sex stuff in the school.
Margaret Sanger operations, and it's also the dark side. Here we go. Higher self, lower self. What is one of the things that the hybrid parasite colonists have been doing under colonial operations? Part of the genocide is to what? Always attack the feminine principle, to reduce the feminine principle, which is the gateway to life in the physical plane, and to neutralize the womb, which is why they create what you call false matrices. Matrix means womb, i.e., and the paradigm of parentis patre parentis, where they claim to be your mother, father, distinguished from your real mother, father, and therefore claim to have right to your life, your physicality, and in the process send out the priesthood to claim your soul. They say saving souls. No, they're claiming souls for the popes of Rome. The two instrumentalities, or the two major platforms by which that is executed, is called the Circle Church and Chancery, i.e. the British Accredited Registry, i.e. the Bar Associations of Britain and Bar Association of America, and the so-called attorneys, lawyers who are Sadducees and Pharisees, and persons among our own who have been working with them, who have continued to exploit our people in the name of civil procedures to really rob their birthright, rob their substance, rob their estates in the name of processing them through the quote-unquote system, as opposed to fundamental, elemental, common sense, i.e. constitutional principles, which is why they're against Constitution. They'll always say, no draw leave on the prophet. They'll always say, that Constitution don't apply to us. 9 times out of 10, start doing some research on them and you'll see that they're actually working with the Bar Association. And their buddies, other buddies who are working with the Board of Education, they make good partners. Those are the two platforms, that the major platforms and the dogma platforms of the church that have corrupted religion. Those are the operations. Bar Association, Board of Education, and the religious orders, i.e. missionary, mercenary, military, the 3 M's. And they have been quite successful at it, which is why we've been using the different strategies of chess moves of people doing writs, declaring their nationality, making allodial claims on their property, etc., declaring their right of their labor, etc., and challenging the Inquisition revenue services, i.e., falsely called the Internal Revenue Services, or the IRS, which are really strong arm collection agencies for the popes of Rome, the Circle Church and Chancery, and the fake Queen of England, etc., guising themselves as government and supported by persons who are really board of directors who have been claiming falsely to be congressmen and senators, etc., when their platform was dissolved in 1861. That's a fact. And for those who need a little bit more information, look up the Organic Act of Congress February 2nd, 1871, and we've been telling you this stuff redundantly so that you yourself can become cognate in your consciousness of rejecting faith and credit of the United States Corporation Company, which is really a human trafficking platform and not a legitimate national government. It is a governing body of thieves, criminals, and vampires and baby killers.
Here's a question from Reese Marcy Ladon. Knowing that the general populace is under maritime law for centuries, how can American law, the law of the land, nature's law, be enforced without raising flags of conflict with them?
Why shouldn't you raise flags in conflict? That's the law of the land. Well, you want to play punk? That's why we don't have the rights. We keep on trying to dance around the issue or keep on excusing things. But yet these same people will quickly go to wars in other lands to maintain this maritime law that they're complaining about as soon as they're out of a job for 3 weeks. Now tell me that's hasn't been the pattern. They'll sit around and boast about. I know many of you seen this movie. What's it called? Red Tail or something like that. What's that movie? With the so-called Negroite airplane pilots that won the war for these hybrids.
Yeah,
they boast about that. You always fighting those wars against your own people, and then come back to the servitude that you're helping them deny your brothers and sisters around the world. And you want to ask, how can you get back? What you can do is stop supporting Rome's platforms and stop playing nigger. That's what you can do. Start taking responsibility and reject Rome, which we've been telling you redundantly, and get the parasites from among you who work for the Bar Association and the Board of Education, because all they're teaching you is how to jump through hoops while raping you economically because they're too lazy to produce anything else.
And you can't, let's not leave out
that's the truth.
The ecclesiastical side of that.
Well, that's all of them.
In particular,
I told you, the Bar Association, Board of Education, and the dogmatic religious platforms are the three operatives that are the tools that enslave humanity.
Right.
That's the truth. If you do some examination, you'll see it for yourself, which is why now we're just simply talking about the judicial platform at the moment, i.e. with American law. So you can have a comprehension between natural law, upon which jurisprudence is built, and the ens legis operations under de facto operations, which is actually what we've been forced to live under maritime law of piracy, booty and prize of the seas brought on land. So they'll call it the Holy See. So the Holy See is SEE, where the Pope, the false Pope of Rome, takes on the eye of Horus and pretends himself to be God, which is demonstrated in the book of Thessalonians 1 and 2. So go read that Bible that was altered with over 700 books being removed, but it's still enough to wake you up a little bit. And look at the book of Thessalonians 1 and 2, and you'll see the one who put themselves on the throne claiming to be God, government, ordnance departments. So when they're saying God, they don't mean what you mean when you say God. You better know that's the truth. But once you get conscious of what's really going on, you yourself in your mental mind will start rejecting Rome. At that point, they start losing power, because it most certainly is ethereal and spiritual first before they can manifest it in the physical world. It is upon you to start rejecting Rome or render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, like you've been claiming for generations and really not doing. You've just been repeating it like puppets with fakery in your hearts.
Fear.
Fear is part of fakery. False education appearing real.
False evidence or expectations.
False education, Board of Education appearing real. Yeah. It's called animal husbandry training.
But fear is always with regard to something that is expected to happen. So it's false expectation appearing real. And so when you stand on your square, as we've been told, you said it and all others have been teaching it, without fear and without trepidation, that's how you fight them. But because the energy of fear is going forth and giving them power.
Let's look at this, Dr. Naila. This is where over the years I've always challenged people. They always say they fear Jesus, God, Allah. I fear no one but Allah.
But that's an issue too.
Jesus. I fear no one but God. And then their actions show that they fear Rome. And Rome knows that.
How about Rome is God?
Well, Rome is the God of this world. It's called Satan.
Right.
Or Shaitan. So all of their legislation deals with the dark side. Do they know the truth? Yes, they will not uphold the truth. When he speaketh of a lie, he speaketh of his own kind. But yet he pretends to be the real Jew, doesn't he? Don't act like they don't see the book of Mark, that they've been promoting. Oh, we love the book of the Bible. Then look at what is exposed in there. Your problem is among those fakers who've been what? Trying to kill you off and claiming your identity. We told you earlier, everything they do is in projection or in someone else's name. Keep in mind, for those of you who remember your little school book stories, the Boston Tea Party, and look at the hybrids put on what they call blackface. That's where that tradition comes from, even in the Mummers Parade at Philadelphia, where they took the birthright and then threw the tea over the side and said the Indians did it. And they do it to the very day. They go in one nation, poison water, kill people, and say somebody else did it. The same way that when they did it during the Second World War, i.e., the members of the Circle Church and Chancery with the United States Corporation Company went into what they call the Middle East. Well, where's the Middle East? Then where's the West East? And where's the East East?
In the Southeast.
Oh, yeah, in the Southeast or the Northeast. Yeah, right. And then they divided up Persia into Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, etc. And they've been battling in that area ever since. And they've been doing things in other people's names. And then they created this fake state over there. And it's been war ever since. And they've been doing it in other people's names. They haven't even changed the playbook. And don't act like you don't know what's going on. Our people, because they fear Rome, not Allah. They don't fear Allah. They don't fear the ancient ones. They fear Rome. So they react to what? Well, they won't give you an ID. And we need to be recognized by them. Like they don't know who you are. Like they don't know they're colonists. Like they don't know they're not Americans. And you pretend that you don't know those facts. We need to be recognized by them. And then we're going to organize in such a manner to get them to get an ID. You're full of crap. You brave, these brave men with no testicles. This is why the truth going to come from babes. Like the prophet said, the day is going to come when people are going to come in this movement with their eyes wide open and enforce my law. That's what's happening today. That's why all them bond systems are dying. There are all these punks that keep on making excuses. Well, God, devils, and when raptures, all this stuff. You don't know the fundamental rules that's been operating on this planet. You tell that crap to somebody else. You need to get rid of these parasites among your own that belong to the Bar Association and to the Board of Education, who have actually been secretly helping these hybrid Romans. Screw you. And stop making excuses for them. Because they're your cousins and buddies. They have produced nothing in your communities. But they're always trying to get a few hundred from you, ain't they? Don't act like you ain't been participating in this BS. Because you have. Stop. Take the vampire's straw out your neck and they'll die by nature. Because they live off your energy.
Stop giving them the straw.
Yes. Stop consenting to the BS. And act like you, I didn't understand. It's BS. It's stumped, isn't it?
Here's a question. No anime says, ask Grand Sheik for help, I guess, with explaining the ringing, I guess, in the head. I guess if people are experiencing ringing, or that person is ringing in the head.
Hold on, because let's talk about reality. They're using microwave technology for mind control purposes. They've been using graphene in those jabs they've been putting in people, because you are actually, they're making these people into what you call transducers for themselves so that they can bend you, etc. So with your cognates, I would suggest you start meditating and doing some cleansing and dealing with some holistic doctors, etc. People who are closer to the earth, to start cleansing yourself.
I saw something that somebody sent me, and they were saying that these doctors, I think it was Dr. Christine Northrup, and somebody went through the airport with a fake, V letter, right? Mm-hmm. Certification, a card. And they said to them that they knew the card was fake because we could track whether or not you actually had it. So when you go through, the card doesn't mean anything, especially when they're picking up.
Because they're magnetized. There's graphene in it, which we told you all earlier, which is what they can send a signal, just like you know how you put that strip on the cards? You know how they put the strips on the cards? Mm-hmm. And they have information on it?
Yeah.
Well, now you're the walking information. You've just been what you would call impregnated with graphene, which makes you a transmitter. And when you go through the airport, the card don't mean anything, because you will light up like a neon sign on their graphene machinery, AI toolery. We keep telling people, but the people keep believing in them, don't they? They keep submitting to them, don't they? Don't they?
Yeah.
Instead of fighting for the restoration of their right of estate, they keep on trying to find methodologies within Rome's system to deal with Rome. You must reject Rome. You can't serve two masters. Make up your mind.
Mm-hmm. Movement. I don't know what that word is. I'm not gonna read that one.
Everything they keep doing, they keep showing you that they are not your government. They keep doing things to injure you. Since when are they? They're not serving you. They're serving themselves to your injury. A child could figure that out. As a matter of fact, probably ants and stuff can figure that out. Ants know when something's trying to hurt them. You go messing with a beehive, they have warriors. They already smell when a threat is there. What happened to your humanity, your sense of self-defense?
Here's Cindy Davies Darby says, how's the IRS setting directives to put into law monitoring our transactions in our bank accounts?
Under unum sanctum operations, is not your bank account. The account belongs to the bank, not to you. These are fundamental principles that people who in the name of leadership should have already told you, because they already know that. All of these people are banks, who are bankers, including the de facto human trafficking venues that they've been calling courts are not courts. They are bank. And the people who have been falsely claimed to be judges are really administrative clerks, and they work for the bank. And when you transfer anything to them, they have what is known as a double ledger operation. Your assets that you think is your account becomes their assets, and then they draw off of those assets with what you call fractionalization. And this is why they claim to own everything, including you, and why at will they can garner the account that you think is yours, because it's not your damn account. And if you try to take anything out of that account that goes beyond a couple of hundred, they will treat you like you walked in that building to rob them. And you still think that that's your account? You need to grow up, start studying the principles of banking, and comprehend that they are neither constitutional nor lawful, but they are actually a criminal operation, etc. This is the reason why they can regulate and control and garnish and corrupt and rob and deduce the value of those accounts, because those accounts belong to them, not to you. But you insist on continuing to deal with them and therefore making yourself subject.
I went to the bank today and had to sit down because I wanted to do a wire transfer, a large sum that I wanted to ask. And so I spoke to a melanated, I wouldn't call him a more than he's woke, but I've been speaking to the brother for the last couple of years at the side. And I asked him, had they been required to do that? And he said, the minute they tell him that they have to do that, he'll be out, because he's not doing that. But I asked him about whether or not it was true about the $600, because people are saying $600 or more. So he told me, he says, well, no, he said, of course, he said, if you're going to do like millions, of course we have to do, he said, but the only thing, this is interesting, the only thing we might have to make note of is if it's going for cryptocurrency, or it was crypto and something else.
Anything that takes it out of their control or venue.
This is what he told me today. So I said, oh, no, this is for educational purposes, right? But it's very interesting. He said the government's monitoring crypto.
The fact of the matter is, let's look at this, Dr. Naila. If it's your account, why did they have any questions whatsoever?
Absolutely.
Did they question you
when I put it in?
When you put it in?
They absolutely did not.
Oh, and why you got to dance through a hoop to get it out? Because the real deal is, they know that once you give it to them, the account that they've been falsely presenting as being your account is really the other side of the double ledger or double books that they keep of assets on their own book, which is why you'll see all of these cities where people have mortgages, not a allodial title. The banks own all of the houses through the municipalities. And when they tax or they go after people's houses, you'll see that it's the bank and the municipalities and city operators together that sue the people or take their property for lack of payment of tax that never really applied to them in the first place.
And now, I do want to add, me having been director of housing for, before I retired, one of the things that people don't realize, particularly if they have, quote unquote, at least thought they owned their home, but they ended up, like a lot of seniors, it happens, now they can't pay their taxes, and the taxes that have been imposed on, not their taxes, and they get their home foreclosed for taxes. What they don't realize is that the value of the house, the difference between the value of the property and the actual taxes owed is their funds too. If
the
they never
alleged taxes,
the alleged, well, I'm just saying the alleged taxes and the value, if you will, what they have in equity, what was in equity in that home, the difference between that belongs to, if they never get the house back, at least those funds belong to them, and they don't know that they can go back, and they won't tell them unless you go back knowing I'm owed the difference. Otherwise, after 5 years or 2 to 5 years, it goes into the unclaimed funds.
Now, while that is true, Dr. Naila, why is no one talking about claiming the right of the property in the first place, as opposed to the residuals of a de facto sale of an estate that didn't belong to them to sell in the first place?
I get that.
Hold on.
I get that.
And that these people are de facto, as well as the property was pledged with Franklin Delano Roosevelt to back their private debt. And then you go back to Woodrow Wilson, etc., where they started claiming the properties to back their debt, i.e., and classifying people's private property out of a allodial venue and into mortgages and deeds that created the artificial debt, which made this issue in the first place, and then misclassified private property as commercial property taxable in a foreign port, which is a fraud and a lie. And no one questioned that.
Yeah, because
why don't these so-called black leaders, grand sheiks, and other people who were put in power themselves to make law and to enforce law, lie on the prophet and say the prophet didn't teach civics, and then they don't enforce the Constitution and those principles and allow this corruption to go on with the misclassification of the people, etc., and then the loss of their estates and their labor, etc., knowing it's a fraud.
I get all that, but what I'm trying to say is there are people who have walked away saying, throwing their hands up.
They weren't informed, even with
but
that.
Within time periods, they still might be able to go back and claim, because they're the cause and the cure. So then they spawn other businesses off of the causes that they have that they reach.
What?
And then
there's exploitation of the people.
There's businesses that actually will go back, research these unclaimed funds, and then find the people who walked away from their domiciles thinking, well, I lost it. They'll find it and then get a fee of anywhere from XY to 40% to get you the funds that you should have been told were yours anyway.
Exploiting false platforms,
but they can do it themselves.
Injury on the people.
Because there's somebody's gonna hear this and has had just this thing happen to them.
Yes. Now, and this is back to the point that I've been making, Dr. Naira. Even with one of the reasons I said I'm presenting some of this. It is from the very beginning that instead of telling the people the truth of what happened, to get the people to stop feeding into the situation, they do what? They find these places of revenue streams for themselves in the false issue and the fraud that had been put upon the people, etc., acting like they're helping the people when they are extending the administration of the problem under the guise of